Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews, it's your number one source. Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, episode 195? What's in the water in Philly, man? There's a ton of content creation coming out of that area, and good stuff as well. And one of those gentlemen is my guest for today's Sports Card Nation, Ray Fonio, also a.k.a. Ray from Philly. Great guy, great content. But he's also the founder of the Baseball Card Hall of Fame. But they're now adding basketball, football, hockey, and who knows what after that. And they do a great job, him and his guys that he has that do it with him. He's added some more guys as they expanded their Card Hall of Fame. We're going to obviously talk about that amongst other things, but doing a great job with that, and glad to have him on the show. I've gotten to know him a little bit. He's a really good guy, and I think you'll enjoy the interview. So with that being said, let's get this party started.
It's showtime.
Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
What up, everybody? It's your boy, Cousin Oz, the People's Mailman, and along with Cousin Tony, the Architect, we are Cousins Collectibles. Make sure to check us out on the Cousins Collectibles podcast, as well as on Instagram at Cousins_Collectibles. Before we get out of here, we wanted to remind you of a couple things.
First and foremost, remember, the hobby is the people.
And as always, keep focused, keep positive, and keep collecting.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
Zion cases are the best card cases in the hobby. One quick walk around the National or even your local card show will bear that out. Whether it's a case to protect your one single Grail card or to hold and protect many of your precious cards, look no further than the Zion cases. And don't forget, our backpack cases have no equal. Check us out at www.zioncases.com and remember to use promo code SCN10 to save an additional 10% off your order. Zion Cases, we protect the hobby. Real happy to have my next guest on the Sports Card Shop at Moco guest line. He hails from the Philadelphia area. He has his own, he's a content creator in his own right. And without further delay, Ray from Philly, Ray Fonio, welcome to Sports Card Nation.
Well, thank you, John, for having me on. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thanks for being on. I guess we'll start out. I'm not going to, the boring, like, how did your hobby, but just your collecting interest. I know, obviously, it starts with Philadelphia's folks, but for those listening, what do you collect? What do you PC? Sort of how do you hobby? That sort of question.
Sure. Well, I started collecting in 1979. Yes, I'm that old. And
well, here's not the we both we have that in common. I started in 79 as well, but go ahead.
That's a good year.
Yeah.
And my grandfather got me started in collecting baseball cards. My grandfather was a big Philadelphia A's fan from back in the day. He got me into telling me all the stories of Jimmy Foxx and Lefty Grove and Connie Mack. And just one day said, here, you're starting to collect cards. And I said, okay. So totally got enamored with collecting the hobby and mainly the history of the hobby of the game as well. And hearing all the stories of the players that he watched with the old Philadelphia A's and the Phillies, the Whiz Kids in 1950. So started collecting, just basically collecting cards, putting them in binders throughout the 80s and the 90s. There was tons of shows in and around the area every weekend. There was probably several shows a month, and I pretty much hit them all. And I had a break in the early 2000s, and before that, I was collecting mainly just raw cards. I had known about graded cards before then, but I wasn't interested in them, mainly because a lot of the dealers at that time in the 90s thought that it was kind of a scam and nobody should really go into it. It's just a way to make more money for the dealers, yada, yada, yada. Well, things have changed quite a bit in the past, I'm going to say 20 years. And when I got back into the hobby around 2000, I'm going to say 13, 14, that's all I collect now is PSA graded cards. And I discovered the set registry around the same time. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with the set registry. I didn't know what I wanted to collect. And I saw some other YouTubers out there that started mentioning this book called The 300 Great Baseball Cards of the 20th Century by Mike Payne. And I looked in the set registry, and lo and behold, that book has a set registry in there. So I started doing that, and it became fun because now I had it was structured. It was streamlined. Now I knew what I was going to do instead of collecting all over the place. I was focused, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And then I started, wanting to do other cards besides that set registry. And then I get into the post-war Rookie Hall of Fame set registry, and then started doing player runs of Topps player runs of Schmidt, Yastrzemski, Bench, all them players. So now I probably have 30, 40 PSA set registries. It's like crack. It's totally addictive, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a slightly competitive thing with people competing with each other around the country on. They have a ranking, and you can move up the ladder. And PSA even does at the National will have a cocktail dinner, and they give out awards to certain people who've done very well in their set registry, whoever has a really good set registry ranked wise, or who's been ranked in this certain platform for each consecutive years, whatever. So, but it's all in fun. It's not like a cutthroat set registry competition. But it's fun. It keeps you focused because before the set registry, when I got back into it, I had taken about a 7-year hiatus from it from the early 2000s to like 13. When I got back into it, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just didn't know if I wanted to just buy packs and put them in binders. I didn't know if I wanted to just build sets. And when I started getting more into the grading process of it and buying slabs, it appealed to me because of many reasons. Number one, it authenticated the card because I noticed there was a lot of fraudulent cards out there, fakes and things like that. And it alleviated any questions as far as what the value of the card was. I remember dealing with dealers in the 80s and 90s, and there might have been certain players I wanted to pick up. So I wanted to sell certain cards to make money, to use that money to buy other players. And you're looking at, and all we had to go by back then were magazines, price guides. And you would go to them and say, hey, the book value on this is such and such amount, say $100. And they would say, well, if that's in this condition, to me, it's in this condition. Then you would argue back and forth. Well, I think it's this condition. Well, with grading, that just stops it right there. It is what it is. If it's a 7, it's a 7. If it's an 8, it's an 8. And it alleviated a lot of questions between you and the dealer, or you and someone else that wanted to buy your card or whatever. It cut all that out. It cut out all that red tape of I think it's valued at this, or I think it's valued at that. Not that I care about the value, but because I collect more for the joy of just collecting. But it saves aggravation down the line. If you wanted to sell certain cards to use that money to buy other cards, it saves a lot of aggravation in that aspect. And it saves aggravation on authentication, and it kept me focused, laser focused, as to know what I wanted to buy now. So instead of going all over the place and picking up this and that, I know when I go to a show, or if I'm looking on eBay or in an auction house, I know right off the bat what I'm looking for. So that's mainly my goal, is baseball. I do dabble a little bit in the other sports, but baseball's always been my first love. Always will be, and mainly vintage. And I do dabble a little bit on the modern side. I'll buy current players, rookie cards, but if it's to me at an affordable price, I don't like going into modern players, rookie cards, if they're hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and then something happens to that player, they get injured, whatever happens to them, and it's a bigger risk, I think. To me, if I see a rookie card for under $100, it's a low risk, high reward kind of a theory for me. So if the player fails, it's not a big loss for me if I buy something in a 10 for $50 or something.
Yeah, hearing you, I mean, I'm nodding because, man, it's like listening to myself. We're really so many similar parallels. 1979, my grandfather also got me into cards in Brooklyn. Went to the corner store with him. I was raised by my grandparents, and a box in 1979, Topps baseball on that counter. I was a sports kid already playing, and I just kind of instantly sort of put two and two together what they were. Asked my grandfather if I could, could I get a couple of them? He said yes, bought them, 25 cents, and the rest is history. That first pack. I was a Thurman Munson guy. He had already passed away, but I was a Yankee fan in my early younger years. I've switched over to the Mets. Steinbrenner sort of ruined the whole Yankee thing for me. That's a show in itself. But, Reggie Jackson at that time was the toast of the town. And that first pack, the fourth or fifth card in, was a Reggie, and the rest is history. And like you, there was some years of where I didn't get rid of my stuff. I just kind of hit pause. Step aside for a real quick break, but we'll be right back with more with Ray. Introducing the only auction house dedicated exclusively to the cards of the 1990s. Josh Adams and John Linden have created an auction company solely for the rare, scarce, and hard-to-find inserts and parallels of the 1990s. Whether it be basketball, baseball, football, or hockey, 90s auctions will have it. Each auction will consist of smaller lots between 100 and 120 lots, so your cards won't get lost in the shuffle. Founded on the principles of fairness, honesty, and integrity, 90s Auction was created by collectors for collectors. Register and consign today at 90sauctions.com. That's 90 little s auctions.com. Sports Card Nation is back with more with Ray Fonio. And here, something you said with the grading, because I've said this on my show, Ray, is when grading first started to really get some buzz about it, I had a store from 92 to 97. I remember one of my real frequent customers came in with a Beckett graded card. I believe it was like 93. And it was I remember the card. It was a Mariano Rivera, the 92 Bowman, where he's in, the polo shirt. And he said, John, look, I just got this back from Beckett. It's graded. And everything you said, I was smiling and nodding because I said to him, his name was Ron. I'm like, Ron, like, this is such a money grab, man. You send your card to another company and they tell you what condition it is. And then they put it in, they encapsulate it. You can't even touch the cards. It's such a money grab. You could have just, if you wanted to pay me $25 or $20, I would have told you what condition it was in. And so I was one of those guys, and here I am, obviously did a 180 and have a lot of graded cards myself. And, for people who don't like grading, and I was wrong in those. I just, that's how your view was at that time. But all great points, with all the fakes and trimming and all that bad stuff we hear about. It's a way to authenticate cards. It's also a way to really, like you said, to sort of eliminate, hey, what's this worth? We kind of can once it's graded, we sort of know where it fits in. And I'm a big graded guy, so it's funny how thinking about my 1993 version of myself to current day, how we can change our opinion. And I even tell people who are sort of anti-graders, if we want to label them as such. I always even try to. I don't debate. I don't debate a lot of things because it's just a never-ending. You just go around in circles. But I always tell the anti-grading folks, you don't have to like it, you don't have to submit, you don't have to buy, but you can't deny certain aspects of it are very crucial and important. May not do it for you, but you can't deny the importance of it. And
Exactly.
it's some of the things you brought up, Ray, were exactly along those lines. And so it's funny, all the parallels. 79 grandfathers got us, and here we are all these years later, right? And
it's uncanny. I mean, I grew up in Philadelphia. I'm a Mike Schmidt fan, and you to hear something even more funny, you said Reggie was your guy. My number 2 favorite player was Reggie Jackson, because in Philadelphia, we were the first family on our street to get cable TV, and we were able to get Channel 11 WPIX in New York. So if I wasn't watching the Phillies, I was watching the Yankees. And I became a big Greg Nettles fan because he played third like Schmidt, and the guy was a great fielder and clutch. And I really loved Greg Nettles, but Reggie was the man. So people ask me today, who's your top 5 players? I always go Schmidt and Jackson's 1 and 2 because I watched them. I grew up watching Schmidt and Reggie play at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something even with that era. Like I'm gonna, maybe a little bit of the old man on the porch. Baseball just had sort of a different feel than it does today. I'm still a fan, don't get me wrong, but just sort of different. The players were even more approachable then than they kind of are now, and but it's fun all the same. We both you talked about the PSA registry party. We both actually attended this year. I was a guest of Val Mars. I thought it was well done. It was the first time I attended it. And you made another great point with the registry is it's sort of a friendly competition. It gives you sort of challenges to meet, things you want to complete. Mm-hmm. And then they add that competition level in a fun sort of way. And it's I'm not on it, but I've even thought quit. It's something I thought about doing. And Chris Carlin came around and asked, like, hey, any suggestions? And I know Chris pretty well. He's been on the show a few times, and I've gotten to know him very personally. And I say, hey, Chris, I got one right up, So I'm even thinking on a personal level. I have an 81 Kellogg's 3D set. And I got it in a collection buyout. I didn't buy the sets. It was in there when I found it in the bottom of the box and I pulled this thing out, Ray. I mean, it is crisp. It looks like we went back in the DeLorean to 1981. These things, 81 cal, they crack. Yeah. They bend, they warp. These things, if you didn't know any better, you'd think they were like fakes. They're such pristine condition. Right. And I'm like, man, I don't know, it's a 66 or I think it's 66 card set or something like that. And I'm like, every one of these, I don't know but everyone looks like it has a shot at a 10 here. Yeah. And it would be a great set to, like, I would love to send the whole set and get the whole set graded, get it on the registry, see what each card grades out. And so when Chris asked me, hey, John, what do you got any ideas? It was the first, I said, listen, I know you've recently lowered your prices back down, but, at $18 a card, no offense, I'm not sending in a Chet Lemon, 81 Kellogg's, even though it's in great shape, but if you did something, even if you did it just for like folks that are sending in a set like that, hey, you're sending in the whole set complete, it's $8 a card in that case. I
agree. That's
something where, because then now you're looking at, a $500 bill instead of a $3,000. I'm not going to send an 81 Kellogg's set for $3,000. Even in the way it presents, which is great. Right. That's a good chunk of change. But $500, where I think many of them can get a 10, and then you get the Capite, I might be number one all of a sudden on the 81 Kellogg's 3D set for the 2 cents that's worth, just to hold that time. $8, and you're not cherry. It's not like you're sending in, the Reggie or the Ricky Henderson, and that's it. You have to get that price level. You got to send the set in as a complete set, and they'll grade it like that. And he liked it. He wrote it down, and I joked with him, if that comes to be, you got to call it the Newman rule. So, we both got a chuckle. But I'd like to see, we're hearing you talk about the registry. I have like some smaller sets where I'd love to send in the whole sets. But the difference between, and I don't know where I came up with the $8. It's just the number that $8, $7 even better. Whatever if they do it, whatever they decide is cost effective for them and still gives collectors an opportunity to send in the whole set. You look at some of these sets, this, right? Like some of these, like the main sets, right? There's 692 cards, 792 cards, right? If to grade every one at, even at $7, that's a big price tag, but it's a lot better at $7 or $8 than $18. And they can put, a qualifier on it. You got to send in the whole set. If you're sending in the whole set, you'll get it. If you just want to think you're going to cherry pick some stars and say you're going towards the set, no. But they can do it. They can do it that way, and I think they'll get more sets that way. And they talk about building the registry up. So your thoughts on that?
They also offer, because when I first got into that, I was like, wow, I would love to. My favorite set's 1980, and I was like, wow, I would love to just do that whole set. But there's 600-700 cards in that set. But what PSA does offer is each year, but just the Hall of Famers, which I've totally gotten involved in right now with certain particular years. For whatever reason, the year I was born, 67 Topps Hall of Fame set, or 1980 Topps Hall of Fame set, where now instead of 700 cards, there could be 40. And it's just the Hall of Famers, not just the rookies. It's the Hall of Famers. So, for example, 1980, you would submit Schmidt, Reggie Jackson, Yastrzemski, Bench, the Hall of Famers from that year. And that's big. That's really taken off in the PSA set registry world, is doing each year, but just the Hall of Famers. And you could do the whole decade. So I'm working on the 70s right now and the 80s, and just doing each year, and just doing like the 75 Topps Hall of Fame set, 76 Topps Hall of Fame set. Because I'm like you. I mean, it's hard to send in 600-700 cards of Joe Charbonneau or Chet Lemon. If anybody remembers it.
They made the big leagues, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not the Mike Schmidts,
right?
And Ricky Henderson
or Ron LaFleur. I mean, to us when we were kids, they were big names, but not anymore.
Well, maybe we'll see it. I put the bug in Chris Carlin's ear. Let's see. He's a go-getter. That was a great hire by them, and he cares. Like when I've talked to him, sometimes people, hey, and sometimes it's lip service. With Chris, he's a genuine guy. Like, I know he's going to look into it. Good. And if it doesn't happen, it's not going to be for lack of effort on Chris's part. So we'll see what comes out of that, if anything.
You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. We'll be right back after this break.
Are you a new sports cards collector or someone returning to the hobby? Maybe you're just looking for a friendly, trustworthy hobby community to hang out with and enjoy collecting. Midwest Box Breaks has been bringing collectors together for many years with affordable breaks, helpful threads, and a Discord group packed with generous people who genuinely care about the hobby and other collectors. Check out the breaks at MidwestBoxBreaks.com. Our goal is to bring you as much value as possible. Also, find us on Twitter at MidwestBoxBreaks.
Hey folks, John here. Just wanted to remind you, use the discount code MBB10 for 10% off your first order at MidwestBoxBreaks.com.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
How many nationals have you been to at this point?
This was my second. The first one was the last time it was in Atlantic City in 2016, and then this was my second. And it just doesn't cease to amaze me. I was fully prepared because I saw how it was in 16, and even though I was fully prepared, I was still blown away, just by the whole thing. The whole aura of the whole place, the size of the place. Atlantic City was, from what a lot of people there were telling me, was space-wise was the biggest space they had seen, square footage-wise. So I felt really comfortable in walking down the aisles where I didn't feel like anyone was cramming me. I've gone to shows where there's 5-6 people deep at a table, and you're bumping in left and right on each aisle. It was pretty spread out as far as I experienced. I was there for 2 days on Thursday and Friday, and it was great. I mean, I was still at awe at some of the things I saw, and even though I've seen them before, it still blows your mind. It still takes your breath away. To see that 52 Mantle SGC 9.5 was just like incredible. And see some of the old jerseys and uniforms. I mean, it's like Disney World for collectors.
Yeah. I always
it.
say, Ray, if it's not here, it probably doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Unless it's extremely super rare.
Right.
But even that is probably here somewhere. And it was my third one, and should have been fourth, but the one that got postponed due to, obviously, the pandemic. But I don't care how many you go to, 1, 2, your third in my case. And now we sort of know, once you go to one, you kind of know what to expect more than if you're going for your first time. But like you said, it's still always, I coined it the Super Bowl, the hobby, right? It's generally around the same week every year, back part of July, front part of August. And I always say it's the most collectors you're going to have in one place at one time for a week. And it is something to be said about that. It's a great opportunity to meet people for the first time. It's a great opportunity to catch up with people you've already met and see them again and hang out with them. And so it's more than, obviously, we're the common thread is the cards we collect and that passion, but there's more to it than that, right? It's the people,
right.
The tagline of this show is the hobby's the people, and it's those stories behind the cards and catching up with people that is part of that the national as well. And I always look forward to going to it and attending it. And this was the first time I was there from start to finish, and you still don't have enough time to meet everybody, see every showcase. Like you almost need 2 weeks, and it's just that big and that immense. And I'm a people person, so people will come up. I'm sure you get that too. I don't cut conversations necessarily. Sure, I just will talk, and then you realize, like, oh man, it was great, but like I spent 30 minutes there. I gotta do this section of the show today. I try to break it up, knowing how long I'm going to be there. Hey, I gotta do this section today, this section tomorrow, and do that way. And even doing that, Ray, I think I know I miss tables.
Easily.
Friday, I will say this. Friday, early on, especially for whatever reason, it was really busy. It wasn't 4 to 5 deep, like you mentioned, but you had to box out to get in front of some show. So you had to kind of either wait till like an opening opened up, almost like a running back waiting for like a hole to open, right? Friday was pretty busy, and it's funny going there Saturday, driving in to the parking garage. I'm seeing all the cars. I'm like, oh man, it's going to be a madhouse. But for whatever reason, Saturday, and I don't know why, it seemed, it was busy. I don't want to make it like it was dead, but it seemed like it wasn't like you didn't have to box out to like fight for a spot in front of a table or a showcase. When I kind of, based on the traffic I saw, like I expected much worse. So I don't know. Right. I don't know the logistics or the science behind that, but Saturday was sort of a breath of fresh air, and that's actually where I bought some of my, the 2 main cards I bought. I really hadn't spent that much money beforehand, and then it was I wound up getting a Koufax rookie and a Spawn rookie, and that was Saturday. I tried to talk my wife into coming back Sunday, but she was ready to head home. The cards don't do nothing for her, but she was on the beach and getting a suntan, reading a book, drinking a beverage. And I tried to talk her into one more day of that while I hit the show, but she was missing folks here and the dog, and she's like, no, let's head back. So I failed on Sunday to do that, but it was great. And like you said, it's a great event. It doesn't matter how many times you go. it doesn't lose that luster.
Right.
There's so much, I always say you go to National and you're not having fun, you're not doing something right. You got to figure something out.
And also, I think it's why it's even more fun now is because of YouTube. When I went in 2016, I had only been on YouTube a little less than a year, so it was fun. But now, by 2022, I'm going into my 7th year on YouTube. Now I saw a lot more people that I knew, that I recognized from their channels, or they knew me or whatever, and it became 100 times more fun. There wasn't the meet and greets that back in 2016 afterwards. It was a lot of fun before then, but now in the past 4 years with YouTube and that community and podcast shows and everything else, it's become even more fun, way more fun, because now you're hanging out and you're sharing what you got and what they got. It was just icing on the cake.
Yeah, and people look out for, like, hey, I'm looking for this.
Yep.
I've had people text me, hey, I'm at this table. I don't know if it's your price. It's great how that, and I've done that in reverse for other people. Yep. Hey, I know you're looking for this. Here, I'll snap a picture, and a lot of times the deal. Maybe the card's not priced, but at least let them know where the card is, and they can do all the haggling if they so choose. And It's nice that we look out. That community, we kind of look out for each other. There's right. Sort of a, not to use a military term, but it's for, band of brothers, right?
It truly is.
Yeah.
And that happened to me quite a few times.
Yeah. And I love that aspect of it. And
time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
Sports Card Nation has returned.
You mentioned you're an OG when it comes to YouTube. What was it when you launched your show years back? What was it that made you do it? What was the kind of how that all kind of come about?
Well, in 2015 or 14, I got back into collecting, and about a year later in 15, I literally was just sitting on my laptop at home one day, and I just went on YouTube. I used to just go on YouTube really just to watch music videos, because I was a musician for a lot of years, and I would just go and watch music videos.
And MTV doesn't play music.
Nope. Nope.
It's funny how that works.
It's totally, yeah. So if I want to go watch videos, I had to go on YouTube. So I just said, let me type in baseball cards one day. And it was like floodgates opened up. I'm like, there's people doing videos on baseball cards? Really? And I saw one person, 2 people, 3 people. And I thought about it for about 4 or 5 days. I'm like, man, I might do that. And the first channel I saw was Nate out in San Francisco. His channel's Tops 85401. And I watched his channel, and I don't know. I just took my phone and I said, let me try it out. And I don't expect to get anything out of it, any response out of it. Let me just try it out and see what happens. Well, I just showed one of my binders one day. I did a video. I had no idea what I was doing. The quality was awful. It was terrible. But I just did it for fun. I did the video, and all of a sudden, I get 3 people, 4 people, 5, 6 people commenting. And then the next thing you know, those people that were commenting, they started doing a shout out to my channel. And then all of a sudden, I went from 2 subscribers to 50 to 60 to 80 overnight. And I was just like, this is fun. This is a lot of fun. And then you started making connections outside of your videos, which made the hobby even more fun. So I started getting really addicted and glued to making content continuously on YouTube, because, when I collected before YouTube, it was hard to share it with anybody. If people would come over your house, they'd see it, be like, oh yeah, that's nice. That's cool. And, you move on. But now there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people all over the country, all over the world, that you see that are like you and collect. And now, and like I said, to meet them in person at the National made the hobby so much more fun. That was what did it for me. It wasn't about being a popular channel or anything, but it made the hobby, it made the collecting aspect that much more fun for me. Because you share, and I see what they're collecting. I get ideas from them. and vice versa. So that was the whole premise of me, it made the hobby more fun and sharing stories and
makes the world
cards
a smaller place,
a
right?
lot smaller.
And you like you said, maybe someone locally, like you said, they'll see your stuff like, oh, that's cool, and then that's sort of the end of it. Now your stuff's being seen by people of like-minded who are really interested and want to share notes and tips and tricks and that sort of thing. And again, they don't have to be in your same city. They can be on a different continent even, and it doesn't matter. That you sort of eliminate that gap in distance. And it's funny. Even, I started Sports Card Nation, the podcast, in 2018, which was really, when you think about 4 years, is not a terribly long time, but in podcast years, that's like
a long time.
There was very few shows when I started this podcast, and now, like you said, there's thousands. If you count YouTube and just even audio podcasts, it's probably five figures, if not six figures, in content. Some are more consistent than others, but there's that many shows. There's no shortage now, and I just think it shows how the hobby's grown and how social media has grown. And even when I started this show, Ray, very similar to like what you said, I didn't go in with sort of any expectation. I just said, hey, I want, I had done some audio video for a buddy of mine on his sports radio show pertaining to the hobby side, and then that kind of ended because I used to have Fridays off, and then I didn't, so that was a Friday thing. And then I'm like, hey, I still want to talk about this, and so I launched this show in November of 2018, not knowing how many people were going to download it. I didn't, people ask me, did you set any sort of expectation? No, I just went in sort of flying by the seat of my pants, open-minded. I kind of expected it to be slow going. When you first start something, no one knows who you are, like initially, and it just sort of built like a crescendo. I didn't expect that. I didn't, have any sort of like grand illusion or anything, and it's crazy sometimes. I say it on the show all the time. Like, if you would have told me 4 years ago this is where the show would be and these people would be on it, and be this many people would be interested, I wouldn't probably believed you. I would have thought you were nuts, but yet, here we are. So it's crazy. And whenever someone has asked me, like, John, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, any tips? Then the first one I always say is do it because you have a passion and you love it, and go in sort of open-minded. Don't always look at the downloads right off the bat. You got to sort of build that up. And but I always say, someone asked me, like, how do you know when you would stop doing the show? And I always say it has nothing to do with me getting a demographics report and seeing downloads go down. It'll be when I turn the mic on, Ray, and I just don't have that. It's almost like going to work, right?
Right.
Like, oh man, I don't want to do it today.
Exactly.
And if I get to that point, that's that inner voice in me saying, you're done, John. I hope, I don't anticipate it happen. I hope it doesn't. But if it did, that'll be the first indication rather than any numbers or anything like that. When I don't have a passion or a love for it, then I know it's time to, hang the mic up, so to speak, and whatnot. And hearing you talk about that, you gotta have people see through that anyway. People know when you're, either being phony or going through the motions, and people can tell when you really love what you're doing and talking about. People pretty smart and keen to that. So it won't have to be me. I'm sure I'd get a few messages like, hey, what's going on lately? So then I would know, but I don't foresee it. And I know in watching you can tell you love the hobby, what you're doing, and sharing that with other folks, and trying to teach at the same time, right? People ask me, because I've been, we've done this so long, they're like, oh, everything. Like, no, far from it. And the hobby changes so much. It's like I use the car analogy, right? You can be a mechanic, and then the next kind of cars have new chipsets, and they have to learn all. It's the same thing with the hobby. We have to learn. I learn as much as I teach, I think, so,
Right.
and educate. And you always, if a day goes by and I haven't learned something new in the hobby, I didn't try that day. Is what it boils down.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say the same exact thing. When people will come up to me and they ask, I'm thinking about I don't know what to do. How do I do it? And I just say, just do it. Well, I don't know how to do the editing that you do. I said, don't worry about it. Just do it. Just get a phone and just do it. And then all that stuff will gradually come. And I've been doing it for a little over 7 years. And like you said, people think I know everything about this hobby. And I tell them I'm far from it. I'm far from it. You probably know more than I do. And if you're not learning every day, like you said, you're missing out. I've learned every single day. When I watch other content, I'm like, I didn't know about that. It's amazing. And I just tell people, if you have an interest in doing it, just do it. And, after about 4 years, I was doing like 4 or 5 videos a week in the beginning. And like you said, you don't want it to become a job. And I remember by the 4th, 5th year, it started to kind of feel like that. But then what got me out of that was helping other people get their channels off the ground and kind of reliving it from the beginning all over again. So, that's when I tell people, just do it. You need help with anything, I'll help you, or be more creative.
And even content wise, right? We learn on the fly there, right? You say like you start with a phone, then you get a legitimate camera, then you get an editor, and you Rome wasn't built in a day, right? You start.
Right.
Someone's at my door. I've got to get that. Be right back.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com. Or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
Thanks for sticking with us. Let's return to the show.
It's funny. I listen to some of the early episodes of this show, and I delete them if they really weren't part of the history of the show, because they're terrible. Honestly, some people might say, well, you're still terrible, John. But the early ones, in comparison to like current edition, like it's cringeworthy. And if they weren't like part of sort of the history of the show, I would delete them, because they're, I was using, like you said, the phone, so the audio quality's not the same, but you learn as you do it, how to upgrade things, how to do different things. Even editing, like the process of editing actually takes me less time now than it did then. And just because I learned how to do stuff more sort of automated or mass editing rather than, individual like slices and stuff. So you learn and you go in with, knowing that you're going to get better at it the more you do. It's like riding a bike, right? First you got to start with training wheels. Eventually you get confident. You take those off. You might fall down a few times and get some strawberries on your knees, and that just gets you more focused, like to keep your balance. And before you know it, you're pedaling and steering, and they're like, holy smokes. And everything sort of slows down, right? It's like a quarterback when that kind of clicks in for them. The play slows down. They see stuff better. I think it's like, I'm far from a quarterback. I did play football. I wasn't quarterback. I was a defense. But I always use that sort of analogy, because that's seems to really kind of fit how it is. But it doesn't happen like that initially. You got to get to that stage. And as long as you're patient and willing to put in the time and effort, and you mentioned even with yourself, you get to 4 or 5 a week, and sometimes maybe a little bit of burnout sets in, but you find different ways to sort of recharge. And I always tell people, whatever you do, like if it's too much, then you cut back a little bit. If it's not enough, you do more. Whatever you find that balance. It might be different for different people. Everyone have different schedules and job requirements. If you're a single guy and you don't have anything pulling you in different directions, you probably could get away with more, and then maybe it takes you away from not being a single guy
Right.
anymore. So I mean, to each their own, right? Everyone has to sort of figure out their own balance. There's no real template. Like you said, I try to be as helpful as possible, and just give the best advice I can. But it'll really be up to the individual to sort of decide.
And that comes through, and that comes through to the video.
Yeah.
And people read right through that.
People know, like, one of the compliments the biggest compliments I get, and I'm sure you get it too, because I know when watching you, you're like that, right? People say, it's funny when I meet people at the National, I get this line sometimes, like, man, you're just like you are, like when I hear you on the air, and I'm like, well, what did you think I was gonna, like a used car salesman? You know what I mean? Like, that's me. Like, that's why, you know what I mean? When I turn the mic on, I'm just being me. My grandfather said when I was very young, like, be yourself. You don't have to pretend to be anyone else. And so I've always, not even just talking about content creation, just across the board, right? And so I always chuckle when someone says that to me, because I don't get mad or anything like that. I'm just like a little surprised. Like, what did you expect? You know what I mean? Like, what you see is what you get. I'm uglier in person than I am, because I'm right in your face. But other than that, I'm the same. I'm the same guy. So, and people, but all joking aside, people. I think most people. I don't want to, say everybody. I think most people appreciate that you're being. I've had people say, "Hey, John, I don't necessarily agree with everything you say, but I know you feel that way, and that's who you are. You're not saying it to get clicks, or you're not saying it for shock value. You're saying it because that's how you feel, and I appreciate that about you. And that's, to me, it's one of the best compliments I can get, and I'll always be that way, and because it's easy to do, right?
Right.
Truth be told. So let's talk about something I love that you do, which is the baseball card Hall of Fame. Now you are launching the football card Hall of Fame, and awesome thing you're doing. It's not new. I don't want to make it sound like it's the football card will be, but you've done the baseball card version for a couple years. It amazed me, Ray, that no one had done it before, and then you kind of took the ball and ran with it. Just kind of talk about sort of how this came about.
Well, what you said was the same thing that ran through my mind. In 2018, I was thinking, I'm surprised that the actual Baseball Hall of Fame doesn't have a wing in there call it the Baseball Card Hall of Fame, which now they do. It's called Shoebox Legends. But at that time, I was saying to myself, I'm surprised they don't induct cards into the Hall of Fame. And the cards is as much as part of the game as anything else. And I just started thinking one day, maybe one day I'll do my own kind of, not a contest, but just a thing of having all the viewers out there vote and pick 10 cards per year and make this an annual thing. It's not an actual real Hall of Fame. It's just more or less a virtual Hall of Fame, but it became interactive with people, and it got cards recognized that maybe a lot of hobbyists didn't even know about, surprisingly. I mean, there's cards out there that people voted for the first couple of years. I'm like, oh, God, I didn't even know about that card. But I just started doing that in 18, and I did it by myself the first 3 years, and it was getting really tough after 3 years because I was getting, a couple hundred votes and trying to keep track with it just wasn't streamlined and tightened enough that was getting out of control. So I decided to get some help from some other YouTubers out there and have this be like a committee, kind of similar to what the actual Baseball Hall of Fame does with the voters ballot or the veterans committee. And I brought on Mike, this baseball card life, and Victor, the rookie card specialist. And we did it last year. Was the first time the three of us all did it together. And this year was the second time we did it all together. And we launched a YouTube channel called the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network, because now it's not just baseball cards. We came up with the idea of let's expand it to football cards, eventually basketball cards, hockey cards. So I don't know much about football cards. Neither does Mike, this baseball card life, or Victor. So we were saying, we need to bring in other people that have football card knowledge. So we kind of scouted it and brought in Bart from Bart's Cards on YouTube and Scott from Scotty Tradition. That's the name of his channel. These two guys are huge football card collectors, and their knowledge is impeccable. So they were the perfect fit for us that, we were hoping they would say yes, they did. So now we're expanding a little bit where we're going to add other sports into it as in the years come. And eventually it'll be basketball, and eventually it'll be hockey. So it's become a lot of fun. We have the Facebook page up now and running. We have a separate channel called the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network, where we're going to have continuous content throughout the year, not just when the elections happen, because you want people to keep interested and you want people to be interactive, to give their ideas on the channel, on the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network channel throughout the year, giving ideas of what cards they'd like to see on the ballot. I try to run it as close to the actual Baseball Hall of Fame as possible, because to me, collecting cards in the Hall of Fame, to me, are the two things that I love the most. So I just put the two of those together, and cards and the Hall of Fame, and it was just like peanut butter and jelly. So it just fit really well. And
you guys do a great job. You guys, first off, do a great job.
Thank you.
I'm not wearing a hat, but hats off to you guys and you for starting it, right? And then, it's nice to hear you say, hey, this kind of got a little bit too big just for a one-man operation, and I'm bringing on a couple people I think I want to be a part of this. And, I had Mike on the show. Victor's been on the show. I'd love to see, you talked about it being virtual, Ray. I'd like to see it be more than that. I'd love to see, in my mind, I don't know if you've thought of this. I'm sure you have.
Yeah, we have.
I'd love to see the national each year, even if they just highlight the inductees, prior, have them on display. They have plenty of room. Maybe even if they incorporate it as part of, heritage display or another auction house, and say, hey, here's the baseball card Hall of Fame. Here's this year's class. Even if the cards are on loan, right? Like the Shoebox Treasures does for their setup,
Yeah.
And I think people would gladly donate for display, not give the card away, but
right.
hey, that's my card. Come check it. Who wouldn't want to brag? Like, it's my Jackie 48 leaf I'm just using that. I know it's already in, but let's say, in the in this year's inductees class, that's actually my card that they're using to highlight the class. I'm getting it back, but it's nice that I'm going to, I'd love to see that, whether it be at the national or I'm being selfish here and saying, Cooperstown's only an hour and 10 minutes away from me. I'd love to see it there every year, and at least the they're probably just going to be interested, obviously, in the baseball portion. The national could do all the sports that you wind up doing and doing. So I'd love to see it be more than the virtual is great too. You're doing it great, but I'd even like to see it go onto that level. I think it'll gain even more. It's gained momentum. I think it would even gain even more momentum, from that. And I'm just glad to hear that it's expanding, eventually to basketball and hockey. And then then you got to do non-sport. I'm making more work for you is what I'm.
Someone has suggested boxing cards to me at the national.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
no doubt. And I have boxing. I like boxing cards, so you won't get any argument from me.
Time for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s in Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mans, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for all. Let's grow the hobby we love together. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
Sports Card Nation has returned.
one quick question. We're coming down to how do people get like really fired up? Do like if something doesn't get in, a card doesn't get in do people like message you or like how did this happen? What do you do? Like they
Yes.
get, like
Yes.
fever pitched over it?
I've gotten messages from people about why isn't the 2206 Eddie Plank card not in? Like I had anything to do. And I said, did you vote on it? Well, yeah, I voted on it. I said, just keep voting for it, And eventually it hopefully it'll get in. No, yeah, I get it every year. How can this card get in and not that card? But it's not in a
it's in good fun.
Vicious way. It's in totally good fun. But yeah, when I go to the card shows or people recognize you and are like, first words out of their mouth, you're Ray from Philly. Yeah. How can the Eddie Plank not be in the Hall of Fame? I said, you got to be kidding me.
Well, what I love, listen, power to the people, man. You let people vote. It's not like you, Mike, and Victor just say, here's the class. We picked it, right?
Yeah.
We're letting
people. That was my whole premise from the beginning.
It's democracy in its purest form. And it's easy. It makes it easy for you to say, hey, you can get mad at me. I voted for it if you did, right?
I did.
They don't know. They don't know. You can say that either way. But like, hey, don't blame me. I voted like you did for it. Just we didn't get enough votes, man. I'm waving the same pen at you are, right?
Yeah,
so
we're trying.
I love that you let people vote. I vote, and I think that way everyone feels like they're part of the process. And then when people you vote, the cards you vote for that don't get in, you can like say, hey, what the heck happened here? I would just say, how did people, I wouldn't go after you. I would just probably say, how did more people not vote for this card? You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't get it. But, and I love that you do it. I think some other people, if they tried to do something like that, they would just sort of be judge, jury, and executioner and say, hey, here's who we selected. While that might be fun for those folks, right? People like to feel part of the process.
That's the whole
thing. And, when you vote, you like to say, see how many of the cards you voted for actually got in, right? You almost like a tally, a scorecard. And people love to be part of the process. I think they should be part of the process. And so the fact that you incorporated that, I think, just bodes well for the future of the program. And I'd love to see it go on a bigger scale, even though it's great in its current form. But I'd love to see it even get bigger. And
that's our goal.
And I think I've told you off the air, so to speak, and I've said this to Mike and Victor. Even before, like I'd love to have all you guys on and do like a special episode where we talk about what's up for candidacy and just kind of, banter about on sort of our takes, without being too, I'll try to do it in a way where I'm not politicking, but just, we'll talk about every card on the ballot, so to speak.
It's hard, but I know.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. And like you said, we want this thing to get like that.
Yeah.
We want this to, we've talked about the National, we've talked about the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Yeah. So those are things that, we got the channel up today. We got other committee members to go on the football. We're going to be adding content each week. We meet weekly, all of us, to try and discuss, what is our agenda for this week?
Yeah.
And what do we want to do? So Dr. Beckett loves it. I've spoken to him about it. He lives for this thing every year, and we have him on, and we have him pick his selections live on air.
I saw it. Yeah.
A lot of people have told us that this thing has legs, and they would love to see this grow for us, and that's our goal.
Yeah. Well, I think the right guys are behind it. That's always half the battle, Ray. You're passionate. I know Mike and Victor are the same way, and so I think you got the right combo. And as you grow, you'll add to that. I'm always available. I'll volunteer myself, even if it's just a question or what have you. But I love what you're doing. I love that you make people part of the process, and I think a lot of people might have tried this and not sort of oversighted that, and you didn't, and it's why it's gaining so much steam and momentum, right?
Well, a lot of credit goes to my committee guys too. I mean, I did it for the first 3 years, but I think it would have stayed the way it was if I didn't bring on Victor and Mike as well.
Yeah.
Without their help and their knowledge, one person's good, but when you have 2, 3, 4, 5 people coming in together, that's definitely, it takes a village to grow a family, they say. Totally true here.
Well, it's nice to hear you, delegate some praise. That's a testament to you, the person. Continued success with everything you're doing. I always give the guest, Ray, give out all those channels that they can find your channel, the Card Hall of Fame stuff. Take your time. There's no time. Give out all that information for those listening. They can check that stuff all out.
Thank you. Well, my channel is Ray from Philly. It's all one word. So if anyone wants to scoot on over to watch my content, to check out PSA graded baseball cards and set registry stuff, go to my channel. It's just look for Ray from Philly, all one word. The Sports Card Hall of Fame Network. It's called the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network. You can check out that channel. My committee members, Mike, This Baseball Card Life. It's called This Baseball Card Life is his channel. And Victor's channel is the Rookie Card Specialist, which is a phenomenal channel where Victor is the rookie guy. I mean, I go to him for questions about rookie cards if I have a question. He knows everything about rookie cards. So, and we have Bart from Bart's Cards and Scott from Scotty Tradition. Those are the guys that are running the Football Card Hall of Fame for the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network. Their channels are great, especially if you're into football. Check it out. I always tell people at the end of every video, thank you for watching. I appreciate your likes, your comments. And a thing I always say at the end is to make sure the most important thing is have fun with it. That's the most important thing.
Yep, no doubt. Couldn't say it better myself. You're not having fun in this hobby. What are we doing, right? There's a lot of other stuff. Well, Ray, keep continued success. Keep up the great work on your channel with the Hall of Fame card stuff. That's obviously growing as we speak, and look forward to watching that. Again, that's not lip service with doing that special episode before any kind.
We're in for it. We'll do it. Yeah.
All right.
Definitely count us in.
Hold you to that. So.
No, but definitely, yeah. And good.
All right.
This is a great thing you're doing. I highly recommend everyone to check out your podcast. I love it. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, Ray. We'll talk again.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Well, man, that was fun talking with Ray. Great guy, doing some great work with his YouTube channel. Their content surrounding the Card Hall of Fames that, as you heard, are expanding to other sports besides baseball, football, basketball, probably eventually hockey. Boxing's been mentioned, and who knows what's on the horizon. But Ray's a passionate guy, loves what he does, and with the help of the guys he's bringing on and already has, that's going to be a very successful venture. I'm going to take a little quick break, but when I come back, I'll give you some closing thoughts.
Check out our website at www.sportscardnationpodcast.com for the new release schedule, our blog, all show episodes, and so much more.
All right, want to thank you out there in the Hobbyverse for listening and downloading the show. Thank you to Ray Fonio for coming on. Great guy, as I said. Check out his stuff. Check out all the Card Hall of Fames as they grow those ventures into what I believe is going to be a huge deal. A couple house cleaning things. A new show I launched. Yep, another one, but not a podcast. A YouTube only, once a week show. Very, very short. I want to keep it to 3 to 8 minutes. I'm calling it Card Story, and my intentions with that video show on our YouTube channel is each week, kind of like a card of the week. Select a card from my inventory. It could be from my personal collection, or it actually can be from my show inventory, and kind of talk about the card, the history of it, maybe where I've acquired it, if the story's interesting enough, and then talk about the player depicted on the card. Some stuff about their career totals, but maybe a little deeper dive, and maybe some stuff that we didn't know about that said player. That'll make you say, "Hey, I didn't know that." Thanks, John, for sharing that. So again, a very short, once a week, 3 to 8 minutes in length. The first one is out. Should be out now. Is it the Jackie Robinson 48-49 Leaf? I don't know. You have to check our YouTube channel. So if you don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, it's Sports Card Nation Podcast on YouTube. Search Sports Card Nation Podcast and it will come up. Subscribe, like, and you'll get notified when those card stories and any of our other materials drop. All right, folks, thanks as always. We'll see you Monday on Hobby Quick Hits, and we'll be back here on Friday with another Sports Card Nation. Take care.